What is up, Alabama fans? Stacey Blackwood here from the Tide Talk podcast. And spring practice is going to be starting up here real soon. And we're going to be talking about the wide receiver position this morning. And there's a lot to talk about here because, of course, we're losing Jamison Williams, John Mechie, and Slade Bolden from that group. But we're bringing in some talented players. We're returning some talented players. And, of course, we brought in Georgia transfer Jermaine Burton. But before we talk too much about that, as usual, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and give this video a huge thumbs up. And while you're there, go to the comment section and answer today's question. Can Agiye Hall step up and be that number 2 wide receiver for Alabama this season? Y for yes or N for no. And as always, feel free to expand on your answer. All right, so let's just look at this wide receiver group real quick as we head into spring practice. Of course, I believe that Jermaine Burton is probably going to be the number 1 guy. Usually Saban doesn't bring in these transfers unless they can make a significant impact. Look at Jamison Williams, look at Henry To'oTo'o. I feel the same way about Jahmyr Gibbs at the running back position. So it looks like Jermaine Burton is probably going to be that number 1 option. He has plenty of SEC experience. He's a talented player. So he looks like he's going to take the number 1 spot. So who's going to be the guy who steps up and takes the number 2 position? You look at a guy like Ja'Cory Brooks. Could it be, JoJo Earl from the slot? But I have my eyes set on Agiye Hall this spring. He is a guy who is supremely talented, maybe the most gifted player in that wide receiver room if we're just talking about naturally gifted wide receivers. So Agiye Hall is a guy I'm watching. We all know how well he performed last year in the A-Day scrimmage. He really dominated the headlines during that contest. And then he kind of fell off the map during the season until late in the year after Jamison Williams and John Mechie went down with injuries. And then we see him thrown to the fire there in the national championship game against Georgia. And, we saw some good things, and we saw some things where you're like, yeah, this guy's a freshman and has a lot of room to grow. So, what I'm looking at this spring is, can Agiye Hall develop into a steady and dependable number 2 option for Alabama? Because if he can, with Jermaine Burton, with JoJo Earl, with Ja'Cory Brooks, with Christian Leary, with the freshmen we're bringing in, early enrollees, Aaron Anderson, Kendrick Law may play wide receiver. So there is plenty of young and dynamic talent in that wide receiver room. But to me, Agiye Hall is a difference maker. And if he can put it all together, get out of his own head a little bit, and maybe do the things that he's supposed to be doing, the sky's the limit for this guy. He is a talented player. We all saw that during the A-Day game last year. So I'm looking for a solid spring this year for Agiye Hall, and hopefully he can develop into being that number 2 option for Alabama. And of course, we know how explosive this offense can be when you have 2 options at wide receiver. We saw that last year with Jamison Williams and John Mechie, and hopefully this season, Jermaine Burton and Agiye Hall can be those guys for Bryce Young and the Crimson Tide. But that's going to wrap this episode up. Just wanted to get this out real quick to talk about the wide receivers as we head into spring practice. Like I said, make sure you jump in the comments. I want to hear from you guys on this. Can Agiye Hall develop into that number 2 wide receiver for Alabama? Y for yes, N for no. And please feel free to give your full thoughts and opinion on that question. But that's going to wrap it up. I really appreciate everybody watching. Until next time, roll tide.